here, it's expanded downwards, been very, very... So technically, this is what we're looking at. We're kind of inside this range, so if I just zoom in, I'm going to clear this up as well. Something that I want to point out is just understanding the relationship or narrative between the daily, the 4-hour, and the 15-minute to ultimately create these sort of high probability trade setup scenarios. And that was kind of something that I got a lot from the previous backtesting video where I didn't show any multi-time frame analysis. And I did that on purpose just to show how we can all have different ways to trade, different rules to trade, different time frames to trade, and it's really up to you to go backtest and see the best way that you trade, because the same way that someone else is going to trade is going to be completely different to how they see the markets and how I see the markets. If you are an OG Hana Forex viewer, then you're gonna remember that I was always looking at multi-time frame back in the day, back in 2018. So to come back to this, something that I wanted to keep in mind is remember that each time we take out sell-side liquidity, it's pretty much always expected to get some sort of reaction. That's whether that's going to push down all the way, or we're going to get a little pause in the market. So if I just look to the left and see, for example, when this was taken out, we had a strong reaction down and price completely reversed to the upside. Similarly with these lows here, price came down, came again and again and again, and it tested it multiple times, these little areas. And if I've said that we are bearish on the daily, that's assuming price is moving to the downside. But in reality, how price really moves is it pushes down, we get a retracement, breaks, retraces, breaks, pulls back, and then breaks again. Ultimately, this is what a bearish trend is like. We get a break, continue, and then we kind of pull back a little bit. So that kind of means that during these phases where we have the break, is that we get these little moments of a retracement or a pullback, meaning that even if the daily is bearish or a higher time frame is bearish, there's opportunities for us to take a short-term long. Alright, so just clearing things up, that was a little bit of background story as to kind of what I'm looking at right now. So with that said, I could be anticipating a move to the upside to ultimately continue the move to the downside. Price moving from level to level. If we just zoom in a little bit more, as Michael would say, let's put some lipstick on the charts. So the first thing that kind of catches my eye is the fact that we have an order block right up here. And with that, we've also got this fair value gap left behind by this candle that was printed on the 4th of April. So I've jumped down to the 4-hour just to get some more clarity. Now when I see this, something that I like to do is I just simply like to refine this AOI, POI, whatever you want to call it, just to clean things up a little bit. I've also still got this trend line over here. I've kind of just reined it in, so we know that we've just broken it, and now we're just kind of reacting as we're grabbing that sell side liquidity. So we have this from the daily, and we've also got this order block. And there's multiple times in the start of my journey when I was trading ICT that I didn't know whether price would go here to here. And on the safe side, I would usually wait for price, to come into this zone. But the amount of times that price would literally just move into this zone and then completely go off without me, and it was honestly frustrating. So it's pretty much even said by Michael himself that to take the one that's closest to the entry, it is what it is. Either if I want to protect myself, I can have a stopover up here. I mean, I know this is the H4, but price is fractal. These things also happen on M1, M2, M5, M15, etc, etc. So something that I always keep in mind is the fact that I'm able to then refine once we come onto the H4 that I can now spot this value area. And the same thing, we've also got a fair value gap here, and we've got these sets of equal highs that's just up here. And usually what I do is I love keeping my charts clean, so I end up actually just focusing on this first as we either approach it or move towards it. If price smashes through, then I know where it can then ending up at, because what could happen is price just creates something like this, and then we continue. Or that might happen around this area. So it's all about getting our possible and probable scenarios, the art of staying neutral, something that I've just been saying for the past 4 or 5 years, and it still remains the same. I'm going to bring price forward into this Monday. This is now Monday, the 10th of April. Now, again, if we were just going to use basic, let's say power of 3, what I'll be looking for is market protraction, sweep, break, retest towards our 4-hour POI, which is this grayed out area here, to then potentially, sweep, break, retest, to then come back and continue off the momentum. Or price may not give us that, but only give us one of them. Either or, we're aware of the possible and probable scenarios. This is where the video gets different to my other videos, because first of all, I want to show us things on the M5 time frame, where it is a little bit more aggressive for me, but I want to show it when we approach, or when we're at, if I just get this, when we get to these areas of value, because that's when I'm allowing myself to be more aggressive, because we're actually backed by, let's say, daily or H4 areas, whereas I don't want to be aggressive in the middle of nowhere, in no man's land. In this, if I just zoom out and show you guys, in this range bound bit of price action, I'd rather be more aggressive and take a trade here, as well as that, taking a trade that aligns with our H4 and daily bias that we're going short. The key differences here from my previous backtesting is I was just mostly using power of 3 on the M15, whereas now this takes a little bit more wisdom, discernment, to understand that I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive using my M5 time frame. But where am I taking it? I'm taking it at a higher probable area, a higher probability area, compared to something that's just ping-ponging. So that's a little bit of a pep talk here. Let's say I've done my forecast in the morning, and this is what I've been eyeing, that I'm either going to take the long on the M15, or if I get into this area, I can jump down to the M5, and that is the game plan. This is the power of forecasting, and when you're backtesting, you can just think ahead and you can see these things play out over and over again. I'm going to wait to see if we get a clean sweep, break, or retest. If we come up to this area and I'm still not anything, I'll look to see how structure forms, order flow forms, price action forms on the M5. So let's just zoom in and play price forward. So you can see price is now coming below midnight. If I was to take a trade, let me just pause this. If I was to take a trade, I'd want the initial break to happen first, rather than having like a pause here, because technically, let's say that we had a little break here, but then it closed with the wick. Same thing here, above Asia range. I could set up an OTE, but price is already moving really high up. And price is already now really pushing up, being so close to this 4-hour POI, which is technically a bearish PDA. I'd more likely take and wait to see what happens in New York, which we are already just entering into right now. I'd rather wait and see how or if something forms to allow us to get to the downside. So with that said, I'm going to slow down the speed of testing, because we're now approaching this. And I'm actually going to jump down to the M5 now. First things first is looking at price action. We like to see this. We like to see corrective behavior. We love to see things that are like breaking, retracing, breaking, retracing. You guys know this language is very familiar to me from just how I've been trading in the past. Where would I have my break of market structure? Well, we have one here, and that is the most recent low. And as you guys know, we're pretty much always sweeping here. What makes me even more happy is to see if price continues. And it does. Alright, so after all of that, I just had to clean up the charts a little bit. I had to move my risk to reward tool to the right, just because approaching and understanding that, because let's say the daily is the pair